So Tinashe, why don't you do is just give us a bit of an introduction on the work that you guys are doing.
Okay, so myself, I'm a researcher affiliated with the African Center for Cities, but also with the University of the Western Cape. So I've been conducting research, excuse me, I think for the past 5 years now on urban agriculture in low-income areas here in Cape Town. So basically, I've been looking at various dynamics and from various lenses to understand what's the place of urban agriculture, what are the benefits of urban agriculture to the people who engage in the practice, and what kind of impact could this practice have at a city level or promote to sustainability in urban setup. Yeah. So along with this particular work, I've reached out to several stakeholders, and of course, KIT being one of them, being involved in some of the research that I conduct in these areas. Thanks.
Oh, lovely. Some of my favorite people are researchers. Are you stumbling on anything that you found absolutely fascinating before we get into this conversation? Anything that surprised you in your research where you were just like, whoa, 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 I did not see that coming, or not really?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. I think I would say one of them was the manner through which, different farmers have come together and mobilized against various issues. I think this has been seen specifically during the COVID or the pandemic time when we had the lockdowns and shutdowns in that period. So it was amazing how you saw farmers coming together and mobilizing themselves to various ends, providing food for people in need in their communities, providing food for kids and things of that nature. So that was quite striking as a form of activism within these communities. Thanks.
I mean, that's a huge part of our conversation is, just resilient communities and so forth. Kurt, give us a bit of an introduction, your role as CEO. Let's talk a little bit about what you're trying to drive, your vision, your mandate as CEO.
So I head up an organization, a nonprofit trust called the South African Urban Food and Farming Trust. And our primary focus is on supporting vulnerable communities to strengthen their resilience. So to deal with the shocks and the stresses of day-to-day life, as you probably know and have talked about, South Africa is one of the most unequal societies on the planet, and Cape Town is an unequal city. There are a lot of communities who really are under-resourced and vulnerable. And so the core of our work is to support them and their resilience by supporting farmers and food gardeners. So I just have to announce that Mama Baba has arrived. So she's sitting next to me. We'll introduce her in just a second.
Awesome.
And I'm going to take
cool.
the headset
Sure.
off in just a minute because we need to share the same connection. So we work with existing informal farmers. So they will call themselves food gardeners or growers, but they're working in urban agriculture, different scales and with different crops. And by supporting them and helping them build networks of connection to help in their food gardening and farming work, that also builds connections that help them in other ways. It builds social infrastructure and the kinds of things that Tinashe just mentioned about farmers supporting each other. We've also found across the 1,000+ farmers that we work with in Cape Town.
Awesome. Let's welcome him.
I'm going to take my headset off, and then Mama Baba can introduce herself. I'm also going to change the background because I think one of us is going to be blurred as we move back and forth. So my apologies.
Okay.
All right.
No problem. No problem. Yes, we can. Mama, yeah. Well, first of all, let me just say hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, hello. Who am I speaking to?
I am Timothy Maurice, the host of today. Yeah, I'm Timothy. Yes.
What is Timothy?
Excuse me?
I'm saying it's good to see you. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Thank you so much. Let me just make sure your surname is Nonkonyana?
No, okay, it's Thembeka, Nonkonyana.
Nonkonyana, yes, got it. Awesome, welcome, thank you very much. And that you are chairperson of AgriHub, right? Tell us a little bit about tell us a little bit about your work and how it all comes together with Kurt's organization and the research that you guys are doing.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Thembeka, as I'm saying. I'm a farmer. We don't call ourselves gardeners. We call ourselves farmers because of the background that we have. I didn't just come to farm because I'm a chairperson at AgriHub. I grew up as a toddler farming with my father because my father's background is from the Eastern Cape where they were farming. But because of colonialism, they were sent to trust houses and they were sent out to go to work in the mines. But my uncles came to Cape Town. That's how my father, the baby of the house, came to Cape Town too. He taught us what he was taught by his parents, to grow seeds and to grow herbs at home, to grow veggies. I was already 4 years old working in the garden. Now, how I came to meet with this gentleman next to me, Kurt. Kurt is from Onranyenzeg here in Cape Town. But I came to join AgriHub early last year, and I found out that he is the person who actually gave time to give back to the communities of Khayelitsha, Mitchells Plain, Langa, and plus one. They've also joined Guguletus. I love who he is, to give back and not say, oh, otherwise we would not be sitting here if it was not for his company, especially him, because he's from Oranje, food gardening, and he taught us, as they work with us in AgriHub, there's a lot of skills that I have actually taken from knowing them. And Ian.
Wow.
That's my introduction.
Wow. Let me say this. Listen, if you're a farmer, I'm a farmer. I have a garden. I love farming. I love the fact that, I actually genuinely grew up on a farm in North Carolina. And I understand the sheer power. And I feel like people who farm are some of the best people in the world. Do you think I'm wrong? I actually feel like farmers are some of the best humans floating around this world. If you are a farmer, you have a garden, shout out. We love you. I just want to say we love you.
Love you too. I love you
yes.
too.
Thank you. So, okay. So let's talk a little bit about this. Why these particular areas? Like, you could be supporting any areas. Why Khayelitsha, Langa? What is the driving force around these particular communities for you?
So as Mama Baba said, we started with our food growing work as volunteers down the road from where I live. I need to say that I am originally from the United States. I've lived in Cape Town, South Africa for the last 25 years. But originally grew up in the States. And when my wife and I had a child, we were very uncomfortable with the nature of the relationships between the neighbors in the community where we lived. And so getting involved in starting up an urban food garden as a volunteer was a way of sort of finding the village in the city, finding those wonderful farmers, Timothy, that you were mentioning, the good people who are around, who are not hiding behind their security systems and so on, and they come out and they grow and connect with the nature, and kids find each other and all those kinds of things. And what I learned starting back in 2012 was just how powerful food growing as a community could be for strengthening yourself, your mental health, your social connections. Plus you get delicious food, it's healthy, it's good for the environment, all those things. So based on those lessons, we were challenging each other to try to support communities where the need was greater, because Oranje is very privileged. There's not a lot of food insecurity. There's not a lot of homelessness. It is at the upper end of the socioeconomic scale in Cape Town. But the lessons that we learned seem to be applicable quite broadly. And so what we did is to look for existing community food gardens and to reach out and say, maybe we can take hands. Maybe there's something that we know that could be supportive, maybe our experience navigating the bureaucracy of the city government, or applying for grants from the provincial government, or even bringing farmers who we met along the way to also speak with farmers in Langa and elsewhere. So we started that journey first in Mitchell's Plain back in 2016, working with a food garden there that helped psychiatric patients with their mental and physical healing. And from there, we've continued to reach out to farmers and food gardeners across the Cape Flats, which is a large area of former townships and vulnerable communities. And we are now working with almost 1,200 farmers across the 4 communities. So one of the real opportunities is to tap into the existing energy and effort that the farmers are making. We don't go around and say, hey, start farming. Because if you know, Timothy is someone who farms as well, if you're not internally motivated, it's hard enough. If you need me or Mama Baba to come around and kick you in the butt and say, get out there and grow turnips, it's never going to work. So we say, hey, if you're already choosing to do it, come, let's take hands. But we don't go around saying this is the answer, because you must discover that for yourself. Maybe you'll be inspired.
Yeah.
But our mission is really supporting those who have already chosen this path as a way to make their livelihoods, their health, their households better.
So how did you come across the brilliant, and I believe you have a presentation that you want to share, and we're going to do that. I just wanted to make sure that I ground this conversation. And I also want to make sure everybody listening understand how this fits into the broader mission that we have for this U.S.-Africa relations. You know, when it comes to us collaborating, one of the big words that came out this morning was aggregation, and essentially putting pieces together that kind of make sense for the whole. And, you know, when we think about, you know, the research you guys are doing, we think about the farming, et cetera, we can all learn from each other. So whether you're a U.S. entrepreneur who's trying to sustain communities, we want to learn from you, Kurt, and your team, and these collaborators, and Tinashe, and all the research he's doing, and Mama Nonkonyana. We want to understand this model clearly so we can transport this model, that we can collaborate, we can aggregate, and we work together. And so before we share your presentation, how do you go about finding all these brilliant people? Tinashe, you know, I can imagine he was somewhere busy doing his thing, you know. Where do you find these people? Do you reach out to them? You know, how are you going about sourcing and engaging talent?
Actually, Tinashe found us.
Oh, wow. Okay. Tinashe, how did you find him?
He's a kind of visionary thinker about the role of urban agriculture, and we were very pleased that he kind of reached out to us and said, tell us your story. But I think it's on him.
Yeah, Tinashe, talk to us. How did you find him?
You know, being a researcher, the work that you do is obviously you need to understand the landscape of what's going on out there. So that involves trying to have a map, or like some form of mapping of all the actors that are involved in a particular sector before you try to understand the key issues within that particular sector. So through the research that I was carrying out, I came to identify a lot of the actors, civil society actors that are involved in urban agriculture. And of course, the SA Urban Food and Farming Trust was one of those. Then I reached out to him for an interview. I think at the time I was doing my master's, I think, but could have been 3 to 4 years now. And then, yeah, since then, we've just been in constant contact through various events, activities, and also research.
Okay, awesome. So, Kurt, you want to queue up your presentation that you want to share?
I didn't prepare a presentation, so I'm not sure where that,
okay,
that
no
information
problem.
came to you.
Yeah, no problem.
But just to say that in reflecting on your comments about how this session fits into your overall kind of vision for the event program and so on, you know, we did have, for example, visits from the former mayor of Atlanta and some of his key people on the role of urban agriculture within their urban context and how we can learn from each other. And we've had connections with Detroit and Cleveland and cities in California. And so the urban issues, there may be less extreme circumstances than we find in South Africa because of the particular legacy of apartheid and colonialism. but America is certainly not devoid of its issues, and urban centers deal with those in ways that are recognizable across continents. And then I would also say that there's a lot of business being done. We had our annual gathering of the 4 different AgriHubs, these 1,200 farmers representatives, on World Food Day this week, and they are doing some serious business. So, and the opportunity is growing. So even though these are vulnerable communities and small informal farmers, the opportunity to make money, to do business, to feed their communities, to support their families is real. And we're seeing, some of the big retailers moving into logistics, into the value chain in these in the informal sector. I mean, Tinashe can probably speak to that a bit more, but there is a big informal economy. And as you know, the food system is a big part of the economy. And so, we may talk about individual food gardeners, but as they aggregate, to use your word, their resources and their outputs, they are reshaping what's available in terms of supply of fresh produce in the city.
Wow. Let's take a step back a little bit. When you look across the landscape and you start to explore, sustainable cities, sustainable towns, and so forth, what is one of the biggest challenges? Did you have issues going into these communities? Was there resistance? What do you see as some of the barriers to entry? And maybe Tinashe, for you or Mom Nonkonyana, any of you can answer these questions, but I want to share some of the thoughts because sometimes these ideas sound really good, but then we have to drill down and go, are there any kind of aggressions that you face going into these areas?
I'm not sure who you want to answer that, but I would ask Mama Baba, please, to just talk about kind of how the farmers view the support of outsiders and how the dynamics work.
Yes, that's a good question.
I thought your question was actually going straight to Kurt, but as they are working with us, fortunately at this point in time, because of the so-called democratic system that is around in South Africa today, it is not as violent as it was before. I'm one of the comrades, I would say. Then we, as our MIC organization, were saying each and every person who lives in South Africa is part of this democratic society. So it was not difficult for Toke to see one of a graduate who came to work with him, Tuma, to work with him, who introduced, because he stays in Langa, who introduced him to Langa. Today, those situations are not around, except that in this country and maybe in other cities too, there is a lot of the violence that is crime, nothing of the resistance. They were so accepted. We actually glad, that's why I introduced myself, say, thank you for the Aranya team who decided that they will come to Langa, they will go to Khayelitsha, these places that other countries say, wow, you can't go in there. They are acceptable. Especially, they don't even come with police when they come here. Being accepted. Actually, I'm sure even the community can see they actually, wow, why should a person come to our societies, which are known as being violent, criminalism, and yet we support them. There is a group here in Langa, it's called the Langa Patrollers. Wherever they see Kurt, they see a brother. And then we're educating our children to even do the same. The youth who is actually so difficult to come and join what we are doing because because of the apartheid system, children are looking for work. They're not looking for us going to work in the soil. So that is of assistance that we want to actually move them to come and work with us. They have no problem coming to these 4 communities.
Thank you so much, Mom. I just want to say we're going to bring in another powerful associate to join this conversation, but I want to say, I want to talk about the economics of this model. Are you guys, Tinashe, Kurt, are you guys some sort of wealthy philanthropist who can just do this? I mean, I'm looking at, I shouldn't be judging Tinashe, but I'm looking at your jacket. It looks expensive. So how do you make money from this?
He's got style.
He's got style. I can see this guy. Yes, we can see here. He's got styles, and haircut is fresh. So I just want to make sure, when it comes to just, the financial modeling, do you seek funding? Take us around the economics of sustaining these communities.
Okay, I think I'll give it a go. So from my side, I'm a researcher. So basically, as a researcher, what we do is, you apply for funding, you identify a research problem within these communities, and you apply for the necessary funding to carry out that particular research. And of course, you have to account to the grant holders or the funders in terms of how that money is being utilized and things of that nature. But ultimately, the goal is to have some research that has an impact to the communities. So identifying the problem is just one part of the issue. But then how do you go about engaging the different community members or the different stakeholders in solving that problem? So the framing of the problem is also quite crucial, which is why you need to associate with people who are closer to the communities, which is why I have to reach out to people such as Kurt, because they know what's happening within these communities and they facilitate the access to the communities. Because as a research, sometimes there's some resistance. There's a lot of research going on within these areas, of course. So there's research fatigue to some extent. So you have to conduct research that to some extent is going to have some form of impact on the communities, and the particular output of that research can feed into the problems, or rather the solutions that the communities are trying to drive or push forward. Okay.
Thank you. And Kurt, are you a philanthropist? What is the position that you go in? Do you have a nonprofit? Did you talk to us?
Sadly, I'm not a wealthy philanthropist.
Okay.
But I'm happy to take money from wealthy philanthropists. And that's one of the skill sets that we have is fundraising. We know how to kind of produce the financial reports and comply with all the various requirements and have tax clearance certificates and do the monitoring and evaluation work, which is so often what blocks organizations like the AgriHub collective that Mama Baba heads up from accessing these funds directly. It's hard enough living in a vulnerable community and then heading up an organization of farmers, but then to also have to run with accountants and tax attorneys and apply for these things is in the startup phase often a very big barrier. So our organization works to provide that support without creating a dependence on us. And I think that's one of the big failings of kind of outside civil society and nonprofit organizations is they inject themselves in the middle of the model. And then if and when the funding dries up, the project collapses. And so our approach is always to be supportive of the agency of the farmers. So if and when we can no longer be available for whatever reason that might be, there's everything that we build together remains under their control and to serve their needs. And so when you ask about the financial models, what we're doing is we're underwriting the startup costs and the capital costs through funds that we have raised through wealthy individuals, through international granting agencies, through local and provincial funders, government funds, a combination of things, so that the operating expenses and then the profit margins can flow to the farmers who are doing the work. So it really is trying to underwrite that startup cost to the point where then they can operate financially sustainably. And we're already seeing that in one of the 4 AgriHubs that we're doing in Khayelitsha. They are financially independent. We cover some of the capital cost of some additional infrastructure that they've indicated they need, and we're fortunate to be able to do that. And we're getting to that stage now in Langa because we're completing the building of some of the infrastructure. And so Mama Baba's kind of ability to look at the balance sheet and the financial reports and speak with the farmers about kind of where their money is going and how much is going to their pocket and how much is covering the overheads. That's entirely under her committee's control.
How do we continue supporting you guys? What can we do to offer you further support? Tinashe, what doors can we open to help you with your research? Mama Nonkonyana, Kurt, what can we do? Let's start with Tinashe, and then I'm going to come to you, Mama, and then we'll come back to you, Kurt, last, and then I'm going to introduce Agnes, who is the co-founder of Konami Blue, Agribusiness and Finance Director, African Women in Agriculture. She'll join the conversation, but how do we support you, Tinashe?
Yeah, I think support from a researcher perspective is sometimes a bit very structured, because when you go into these communities, it's really important to have a conversation and understand the needs of the communities, right? So it somehow doesn't work well to have a format where you have to like conceptualize the problem and it's sort of like in a concrete nature and not flexible to some extent, because some of these issues, you better understand them as you engage further with the communities. And sometimes it really takes years to come to that level, right? So I think there has to be some flexibility somehow with the funders to understand that, you know, some of these challenges really take time to understand and conceptualize. And of course, it's a collaborative process with the different actors involved, particularly the grassroots communities. So I'd say that is a key thing that funders need to understand in this process. Thanks.
Sure. Flexibility. So if you had access to funders, you need funders to have a mindset that they are trusting your research process. They are trusting, you know, the level that you're engaging in so that they can be flexible. Is that one of your biggest needs?
Yes, definitely.
All right.
Because I think
you.
over time there has to be some form of innovation and improving the manner through which we conduct the research to have a more meaningful impact within these communities. Thanks.
Awesome. Mama, what do you need? How can we support you?
Thank you. Thank you very much for that question. I want to actually say, currently, with the assistance of SAFT, which is the South African Food and Farming Links, they are actively engaging the farmers. Farmers are people, I don't want to go back because I've already said who we are. And then because there's actually in Langa, when we went to this gathering, we saw that there's a lot we have learned from Khayelitsha, how they do things. And here, as I started, I'm a chairperson starting in February to actually educate the farmers that they don't hold too much shoulders on SAFT, but SAFT, what I like, which came from our meeting, the annual general meeting, is that we want to be taught how to actually take over from SAFT. And Kurt, they have actually assisted us by launching our AgriHub last week to actually make people understand that continuously they still have things that they are doing with us and make us actually next month, early next month, we are going to go to a workshop that is going to train us with administration, so people understand that you don't just farm and go and eat. You've got to sustain yourself. You've got to understand that economically, you are there. If we hold on too much on the funds that we give, we call them our mentors, we will never reach out. We will never be who we want to be. So, and our children will never want to come and join us. So I would appreciate that funding still goes to SAFT, because currently they are teaching us. We've gone to a workshop where we were taught of how to farm and understand what the soil is. Who are we dealing with when we don't deal with the soil? We are waiting for those, but we can't get those results or certificates until we get into the important one, is to understand economic side of it. So currently, and then I've said to Kurt when some students came from abroad, I said, we want to take the middlemen out and go funding ourselves. But currently, with the teaching that we see from them, we can now go out, because we've sourced even a marketing place, which is in Mowbray, where we can all 4 communities go into Mowbray and take our stuff. What we learned from Khayelitsha, that our stuff currently, our produce currently is bought by SAFT. What he just said now is bought by them, and then it goes back to the community, to those vulnerable people that we are talking about, because we are working with people who are making soup kitchens for those people who are unemployed, the disabled homes, and also the ECDs. Obviously, some cents, there are some that come straight to us from the tourists when they come to buy from us. I'm actually willfully saying, until we are ready to move on, I will come and knock at your door and say, we've pushed cut out of our life, but currently,
yes,
we don't want them to baby us, but we want them to continue to teach us until we are ready. Thank you.
Wow. Let me just say, there are angels and heroes floating around. And as I'm hearing you speak, the tenacity, the level of youth and vitality in your energy, in your spirit is just phenomenal. I've got a bunch of young women that I mentor. I need them to meet you, because these guys are lazy. And you out here just creating.
72 years old, sir. 72 years old.
Guys, let's show her some love. Amazing. I'm blown away by you. I'm blown away. Yes. So, Kurt, quickly, before I bring Agnes in, how can we support you?
So I think Mama Baba is being very generous, and the farmers are more capable, I think, than they realize, and we very much would like funding to come directly into the farmer collectives, and we will support them with administrative and other kinds of support. But I think for them to be accountable directly for the funding they receive is the time is right. And so, whatever the model is, we'll support that. But their agency and autonomy needs to grow further, and I think they're either there or on the edge of it. I also think they need business. They need customers. Yes. So people are going to buy their produce consistently. Can help them. What we've been doing is getting the flow going of the purchasing, but when they know that each seed or seedling they put in the ground is already going to be sold by the time it's ready, that will help them take the risk of putting the time and energy and money into the soil. So helping them with business, not with charity, I think is a big piece of it. And then from our side, we are now with 4 of these farmer collectives in Cape Town, and we're ready to scale. So looking for impact philanthropists who can help support the scale up of the model. We've got years of support, thanks in part to the data that Tinashe and his team have been able to provide, and other researchers in the monitoring and evaluation. We understand what it takes. We understand the impact. We've put out a call for new communities to put their hands up and say, hey, we'd like to start an AgriHub. And we've used the resources that we have, but we're at a point where we can scale. So we've gone from 2 to 3 to 4, and we need to go now to 10 and to 20 and get outside of Cape Town. We're talking with Durban, we're talking with Johannesburg, and get outside of South Africa as well. So we very much would like the links to the kinds of impact philanthropists and impact investors who kind of have the long view, not kind of venture capital, but a different view for the kinds of returns that they'll get, who are ready to have that conversation. I think that would be the most impactful in part because the more farmers we have in the collective, the more leverage the farmers have. And the more they can control their own destiny, the better it will be for everyone. So we're at 1,200 farmers now, and we need to be at 20,000 farmers. And then we've got some real power in these urban spaces.
I can see these hubs in Soweto. I can see them all over. And I got a couple of people on the call that I have in mind that could really help facilitate some of this. So please drop your email into the chat for us so that we can connect with you. I want to ask Agnes, thank you. And I want to ask Agnes to come. Let's spotlight Agnes. Agnes, as I mentioned earlier, she's co-founder of Konami Blue Agribusiness, and she's the finance director of African Women in Agriculture. Agnes, are you there? Looking forward to meeting you. Hopefully you're there. If you're not, we'll continue this conversation. Just ask our team. Kanye Spongile, is Agnes there?
We're trying to connect with her again, Tim. Apologies for that.
Oh, okay. No problem. No problem. We can continue the conversation. Kurt, just quickly, when you look at what the research shows, and perhaps even Tinashe has provided some of this research, where is the next likely market for you? Have you identified Eastern Cape, other areas in Western Cape, Joburg? I know you mentioned a few areas, but is there one that you have at the top of your priority at the moment?
So it's going to be either Durban or Johannesburg areas. I mean, those are kind of urban conglomerates, and Durban is eThekwini, and Johannesburg and Pretoria and Midrand and all those kind of all run together. But in those areas where you have urban density, there is a strong connection with the land that people have, and where we have existing relationships either with other civil society organizations or through academic researchers' connections. We kind of have some sense of what's going on. And it has really been our own internal capacity to not move too quickly. If someone is going to reach out and we're going to support them, we want to make sure we can be there for them. So we are only now at the point where we feel confident that we can start to look at cities outside of Cape Town and do justice to their needs.
Okay, I think Agnes is back. Agnes, are you there? You can put your mic on for me.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you very clearly. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
Good. Let me introduce you to Tinashe. Dr. Tinashe is a researcher. Mom Nonkonyana is a farmer. Kurt is a agri-entrepreneur who's developed some wonderful models. Tell us a little bit about you. Share a little bit about the work you want to do. I mean, we have about 15 minutes, so we've got times. Yeah, share a little bit.
I'll speak fast. So I'm Agnes. I represent an organization called African Women in Agriculture, AWIA. We operate in Johannesburg mostly, and we work. So I listened to the first half of the conversation when you were talking about the urban farming and what you're doing in terms of the research, because we also do the same. And we are trying to encourage farming because we know there are high levels of unemployment in our communities. So what we're trying to do is to encourage young people to farm. And there are obviously some young people who are already messing around or tinkering in their back gardens, doing bits and pieces. And those are the ones who we work with. So before they apply for our programs, we ask them to show us what it is that they have done. So they show us their small gardens, they take videos, they take pictures, and then they apply for our programs, and we work with them. So we try to give them the skills, the tools, and try to give them access to market if they are, I suppose, farming at a bigger scale. But most importantly, what we teach them how to do is to document or to create a business out of their little farm. So to say to them, when you're putting seedlings into the ground, how much does it cost you? How much does it cost you or how much do you make when you start to sell the seedlings? If you need to put anything, we ask them to use organic materials. So organic compost, if you have to buy some, how much does it cost you? If you're going to make it in your back garden, put in the costs and try and make it a business so that when you harvest and maybe sell to your neighbors, you know that you're starting a viable business and you see whether you're making a profit or a loss. So I think for us, that's one of the most important components is the business angle. Because a lot of people farm, they grow stuff, but you actually don't understand the numbers. So it's about, yes, I'm growing, I don't know how many bunches of spinach I can get from 1 square meter size. You need to understand, if I plant this spinach plant, how many bunches am I going to get out of it? Who am I going to sell it to? So we tell them to start to market to your neighbors. Who eats spinach in your community? Who eats cabbages in your community? And you start to sell and start to build a viable business. And you find that a lot of the ladies we work with, we started with women, but we've actually found that young men just pitch up and they're like, ma'am, I want to work with you. And we really can't say no to them. So if they're driven, committed, prepared to do the work, we work with them. We normally work in Joburg South, so we've done Orange Farm, Orlando West, we're in Aikenhof, so a lot of the south of Joburg, and then we've done a bit in Cosmo City, Diepsloot. So we're just trying to go where there's a lot of disadvantaged communities. And so and we've done Alex as well, sorry. Those who don't have space in their back gardens, we have a little contraption that we call the Amavage Pyramid. It is a 6-layer pyramid. It's a 6-story contraption where they can grow, instead of on a 3x3 square meter piece of land, you can grow 120 spinach bunches. Or you can intercrop with spring onions. And that's what we're trying to encourage them to do. Intercrop with spring onions. If you eat chilies, grow your chilies on it. And it's a smaller space, especially for those who live in urban areas and don't have vast backyards. So they use that, they can grow their crops. It's water smart, so they don't use that much water. And because it's a limited space, it's not so susceptible to pests and diseases. So yeah, that's what we do.
Let's talk a bit about where the opportunities for collaboration are. You're doing incredible work. And you've heard, as you said, you've heard a little bit about the hubs that these guys are pioneering as well. Where do you see opportunity for collaboration?
There's always opportunity for collaboration. What they know, we don't know. What we know, they don't know. And I think it's an opportunity to work together and empower each other with knowledge, tools, skills. I heard Tinashe is doing a lot of research as well. It would be great to see the insights into what he's researched and, you know, what's happening. And also to understand from Kurt and Mam what is happening on their side as well and the lessons they have learned. We're dealing with people, and you find people have resistant to change. People sometimes just wake up and decide, I do not want to garden anymore. This is too hard. Look at the weather that we've been having. Snow in the middle of summer, flooding, all those things are challenges for farmers. And a lot of them get discouraged, and they need support, they need help, they need encouragement. And what we also found is we try to provide a bit of, I think I would say, mental health support as well. So we try to do it as I would say, holistic solution. So we understand that you're a farmer, but you're a person too. So you have your own personal issues. So we try to also build capacity from that side. So collaboration, definitely, there's lots of opportunities to learn from each other. And another thing that we've done is, so we realize that a lot of the urbanites have got pieces of land in their communal areas. So we try to work with them to see if we can help them. And that's obviously where we would want to collaborate and find the resources to help them to start to farm at a larger scale in their communal areas. because they've got the enthusiasm, they've got the skill, they've got the time, and they've got the land. So it's about giving them the support that they require to go back home and start farming there.
Kurt, what about you? Where do you see opportunities for collaboration?
Yeah, I think Agnes said a lot that I would echo. There are also networks that we're aware of. I don't know, Agnes, if you guys are involved with the Izindaba Zokudla network there. Yeah, so in Soweto, the networks of urban farmers. So some of that just sharing of social capital and building the networks. And the discussion of the AgriHub model. It's basically an adaptation of a farmers cooperative from a rural or a peri-urban space into an urban space with the particular issues faced in urban vulnerable communities. So be able to get inputs, buying collectively, bulk buying, reducing costs, sharing logistics, all those things are pretty basic. And it sounds like we could already start with a conversation along those lines and then kind of see where it goes. And I'll also just mention that Tinashe is actively involved in some research on some vertical hydroponics growing models, which we're really excited about. We managed a rooftop hydroponic farm for about 18 months. And then Tinashe is looking at the data from that, because from our point of view, sometimes a vertical hydroponic setup is a more appropriate growing mode than growing in ground, depending on where you are in an urban space, because you don't need healthy soil. It's very water sensitive, et cetera, et cetera. So sharing these different growing methodologies, like the tower that Agnes referred to, the contraption, we can have a look at that. So I think there are some great opportunities for sharing networks, sharing innovations, sharing models as a starting point that are low risk and easy enough to do, and see where it leads.
I would like for you guys to share your websites into the chat. We have a hand up from Lillian. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name properly, but feel free to go ahead with your question.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. You can speak a little bit loud. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry for that. Okay, thank you. To start, I first want to congratulate Kurt, Agnes, Tinashe, and Timothy for this opportunity and for their presentation. Thank you very much. So, my name is Lilian Tazo. I am based in US, Laurel, Maryland. I am a CEO of Brahead Consulting. It's a consulting company, and we basically work in the effort of encouraging Africans, in terms of their food processing and packaging, because we notice that a lot of in Africa we import a lot, while we can basically produce locally, sell locally, and maybe export. But we all understand that we are lacking funds. That is why we are behind, but we won't be behind, because we young, we are working on that. And I really appreciate the idea of AgriHub. Thank you, Kurt. And my question to you, I would like to know at what level you are in terms of presence in Africa. Yes, I understand. I understood that you are actually in South Africa, which is good. Also going forward to Agnes. So that is a kind of collaboration and that integration that we both will like to build, because we want to build something very large and huge to assist other countries that are actually facing those kind of difficulty. Because for us to grow, we need to start with farmers and encouraging those people to produce, to know that they can do it, because sometimes they think that they cannot do it. It's very important. Yes, that motivation every day. So thank you very much. And also I hope that so I hope that after this we will build we will connect together, because actually here in US with my team, we have been working to connect and engage with a lot of investors, private investors that are willing to provide a machine, even though it's not free, to support in the production system, processing and packaging, which is very important, because also something that we are lacking is that after they produce, we have raw material. We can transform those raw material and then we can package them, right, and sell it to be competitive in the market. We can do that, and those are 100% organic food that we are selling. So yes, really,
we got you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you so much. I think the answer, I'm going to step in for Kurt. Kurt says that he's wide open. He's looking forward to going into other parts of Africa, but at the moment he's in, their focus have been focused on Cape Town as they've been building their model. Was there another question to Agnes? I think there may have been another question to Agnes. Did you hear a question, Agnes?
I would also like to know where where they are with their organization. Yes, because I think I didn't hear where they are located. Sorry. Yes.
Okay, great. So Kurt is in Cape Town. Agnes, where are you based?
Johannesburg.
Okay, cool. And Lillian. Okay, Lillian, where are you in the U.S.?
We are based in Laurel, Maryland.
You're in Maryland. Lovely, lovely, wonderful, wonderful. So we're asking everybody to put their websites. We will share in our reference packs, but just for now, since the conversation is hot, just please share your website details into the chat. Thank you guys very much. Thank you so much, Lillian. Is there another question from the floor?
No.
And if we can get our... There's another question from the floor?
Yes, it's Zuki. Not
Hi,
sure
Zuki.
where we are. I think it's midday, so good afternoon, everyone. So thank you very much for the insights that were shared. Really appreciate it. I'm really inspired, Kurt, what you guys are doing in the community. And you sort of answered my first question, which I wanted to ask if there could be a multiplier effect in the programs that you guys are doing. And you did say that you're looking at other areas. So I'm from the Eastern Cape, and there's definitely a lot of opportunity and land this side. We've got a lot of tribal land as well that because I'm in solar renewable, I'm in manufacturing, I'm dealing a lot with the kings and people like that to see how we can make the land more useful. From my side, I'm looking at putting energy. It could be a different sort of like purpose for you guys, just as an opportunity. And then I wanted to ask, maybe the question would be more for Tinashe, I'm not sure, but I wanted to ask if the farming equipment that is used, because I'm in manufacturing, I just wanted to get an idea if they are local, they are mostly imported, and what are the opportunities that some of the equipment could be localized?
Okay, so the quick answer would be, I'm not quite sure if these are imported or locally produced, but what I know that they're typically subsidized and provided by, for example, the City of Cape Town, but other civil society actors as well, because typically the farmers themselves don't have a lot of these tools that they would require in upscaling the activities. Thanks.
Awesome. Any other questions, Zuki? I think you were putting out. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think for me, maybe Tinashe or Kurt, it would be nice that you can drop some of these equipment makers, for me just to investigate collaborations. It doesn't have to be mainstream. It could be sub-components that are contributing to the machine, which at the moment, from an automotive perspective, we are producing little plugs and little things, little plastic things that go into the main parts. So I think for things that small, we don't have to import them, for example. There could be opportunities that, we can plug and play in that space. That's my interest. Thank you.
Yeah, I think
Awesome.
that's great that you're available. And if we can somehow get Zuki's contact details when you share the contact package. It's a big barrier to getting replacement of imported parts. So knowing that things can be manufactured locally opens up all kinds of other possible technologies where ordinarily we might have to wait for a filter from China or an engineered pump from the Netherlands or something like that. So great partners to help us problem solve.
Awesome. I see a hand from Sipongile.
It's actually for Azola. Azola N is on the call, and there's a question that she'd like to ask. So I wanted to encourage her to ask it directly. Azola, please share your question on AgriHubs. Okay, I think what Azola was saying on mail was essentially how do AgriHubs converge into a community of, agri activities. I think it's really a question around being connected and seeing the value in catalyzing that community.
Yeah, so just briefly, we work at a community scale. So Langa, a community of 100,000 people, Guguletu, Kailicha, not all of Kailicha, it's a city of 500,000 people. In Mitchell's Plain, it's a region of Mitchell's Plain, which is another city of hundreds of thousands of people. So each community, however they define their own boundaries, the farmers in that area have their own collective, and they decide the boundaries and what the ranges of the membership are. So there's place-based support, and then we actively support learning journeys and exchanges and visits of the members of each community to one another's communities. And then we host events where they all come together. And we also host educational workshops and programs where members of the different communities also come together. So we've got a very explicit program for building relationships across communities. And then with the facilitated annual meeting, as I said, we just had that on World Food Day this week. That's where the leadership of each of the collectives, the steering committees as they're called, come together, and they're starting to make decisions about how the overall collective, now over 1,000 farmers, wants to steer the bigger collectives. So we work at those two different scales because each community is different, but there are common interests and needs that farmers everywhere in cities have.